Only believe, don't fear. Our Master Jesus is always watching over us, and no matter what the persecution, Jesus will surely overcome it. Good afternoon, my name is Lottie Moon, and this is my story. Sadly, when I was young, I did not believe in God, but God, who is always in control, had amazing plans for my life. God called me to become a missionary and confidently share His word in China, because many Chinese people did not know about God. Throughout my life, I battled many troubles, but did not allow the trials in life to keep me down. I would not give up. Although my childhood was filled with faith trials at first, God led me into great mission work. I grew up in a wealthy family in Virginia on an extremely grand plantation. I studied languages and had a very fine education, which other girls did not have at the time. Because of this, I was the first woman in the South to earn a master's degree. Sadly, I was just in my youth when my father died. While on his way to Louisiana, the boat that my father was traveling on caught on fire and he suffered a heart attack. I was devastated. At the time of my father's passing, I did not have a relationship with God. My friends continuously prayed that I would one day love and trust in Him. One night, I was at my friend's church and heard about Christ in a different way in my heart. That night, I was unable to go to sleep and kept thinking about the sermon and becoming a Christian. The next morning, I decided that I wanted to become a Christian and devote my life to Christ. But my childhood might have been hard at first, but with God, anything is possible. Because of my own relationship with Christ, I began to desire mission work in China, and over time, China became my home. With determination, on October 7, 1873, I followed my dreams and set sail to China to share the gospel. I was aware that the Chinese needed more missionaries to help them share the love of God. As I set foot in China, I noticed that the Chinese were cautious of my appearance, which was different than the Chinese culture. Since I wanted to be welcomed by the Chinese, I began using more traditional Chinese clothing, and the people of China started to accept me more. I continued to share the gospel with those around me and even opened a school for young girls. In 1878, another missionary and I ventured deep into China to share the good news of Jesus. Many times I would preach at night and joyfully sing heartwarming hymns while gathering with the Chinese. Over time, the crowds became larger, and eventually some of the people accepted Christ into their hearts because of the work from the Holy Spirit in me. This made me ecstatic. I loved China and enjoyed my mission to preach about God to the Chinese. I worked extremely hard to establish myself as a missionary in China, despite all of the troubles that I encountered. One of my struggles in China was to gain the Chinese people's acceptance. Because I desired to be welcomed by them, I one day made sugar cookies for the children, and they loved and devoured the cookies. Although many Chinese people loved and respected me, some did not. Sadly, a few Chinese people wished to destroy the church that I attended. Amid the chaos at the church, I trusted in God for the protection of the congregation and myself. I bravely exclaimed, "If you want to destroy this church and the Chinese people who worship in it, you will have to kill me first." The Chinese man who despised and was willing to kill me raised the sword in his hand, ready to hurt me. God's protection was over the church, and He intervened by making the sword plummet to the ground. The crowd was in awe. Oh, wait, skip. God's protection. Miraculously, no one was hurt that day. The crowd was in awe. Years later, a famine struck China, and I shared my food with the starving Chinese until I only weighed 50 pounds. Because of my willingness to sacrifice my food with those in need, I died from starvation on the boat back to America. While I faced many challenges in China, I never regretted moving there. While I experienced hardships in my early life as well as my missionary life, God was always with me. Boldly, I became a missionary and traveled to China to preach the gospel to the Chinese. This was a hard task. Although I endured many troubles in my life, I performed my missionary work effectively. After I surrendered my life to Christ, I trusted that God would guide me in the mission field, which became my purpose in life. I hope that I inspired you to always trust in God no matter what trials you go through.